There's one badge in Britain that's done more social climbing than almost any other car on the road. It started life as a farmer's tool built for mud and hedgerows. Now it's the single most recognizable status symbol on the school run. Same name, same badge, completely different life. This is your life as every Range Rover owner, from the one everyone mocks to the one everyone secretly wants. If you own a Range Rover Evoque, you've already heard every joke there is. Is that a real Range Rover or the one from the catalog? You bought it because it looks the part for less money, and you will defend that decision to the grave, even though you know exactly what people are thinking when they see it parked outside the school gates. It's compact, it's stylish, and it gets compared to a slightly posh Honda CR-V by people who've never driven one and never will. You tell yourself it's the smart choice, practical, sensible. You will not convince a single person at the car meet of this. Here's the thing about Evoque owners specifically. You are the most defensive Range Rover owners on the entire road because you're the ones who get gatekept the hardest. The full-size Range Rover owners look down on you. The BMW X3 owners think you overpaid for a badge. Even other Evoque owners size each other up in car parks to check who got the bigger engine. Nobody's fully on your side, and somehow you've made peace with that. The Velar exists for one reason: to be the Range Rover for people who think the regular Range Rover is a bit much. It's sleek, it's minimal, it's got hidden door handles that pop out like it's auditioning for a Bond film. You bought this because you wanted people to know you could afford a Range Rover without actually saying the words Range Rover out loud. It's the quiet flex, the I didn't want to be too obvious about it flex, which, ironically, is its own kind of obvious. Velar owners have a very specific personality trait. You will tell anyone who asks that you chose it for the design language. You will use the phrase design language unprompted in conversation about a car. You've also definitely shown at least one friend the floating infotainment screen like it's a magic trick. It is not a magic trick. It is a screen. Now we're getting serious. The Range Rover Sport. This is the tier where things start to get a little unhinged. You've got the size of a proper Range Rover with the badge telling everyone you could have gone faster if you really wanted to. Nobody buys a Range Rover Sport to actually go off-road. You bought it because sport sounds better than standard, and because deep down you wanted just a little bit of an edge over the school-run moms and the regular Vogue model. Sport owners are the most competitive Range Rover owners by a mile. You will absolutely bring up the 0 to 60 time in casual conversation. You've definitely revved the engine slightly louder than necessary leaving the Waitrose car park. You tell yourself it's a driver's car. It is technically a car, and you do, technically, drive it. That's where the driver's car claims should probably stop. Then there's the one that built the whole reputation, the full-size Range Rover, the Vogue. This is it. This is the actual Chelsea tractor. The term itself dates back to the 1980s, when farmers' Range Rovers started showing up on the streets of London's wealthiest postcodes, ferrying kids to private school instead of livestock through a field. The car never changed that much. The people driving it changed completely. If you own one of these, you are statistically more likely to use the off-road capability to mount a curb outside a school than to actually go off-road. And that's fine. Nobody's judging you. Everyone is absolutely judging you. You know this. You've made peace with it the same way the Evoque owners have, except you're judged for having too much rather than not enough. Vogue owners have a very specific relationship with their cars, and it's almost entirely based on trust, not logic. Here's the actual data on this because it's genuinely fascinating. Land Rover as a brand sits at the bottom of nearly every major reliability survey out there. RepairPal ranks them 31st out of 32 car brands. What car puts them in the mid-20s out of about 30 manufacturers? The average annual repair bill runs somewhere around £900 to £1,000, well above the industry average, and that's before you factor in the air suspension. If your air suspension fails, and on a Range Rover it eventually will, you're looking at a repair bill that can top £3,000 for a single corner of the car. And yet here's the part that should sound familiar if you're an Evoque owner getting laughed at for buying the small one. Range Rovers depreciate brutally fast precisely because of this reputation. Some models lose around 60% of their value in the first 5 years, which means used Range Rovers are everywhere, they're relatively cheap to buy, and they're exactly as expensive to actually keep as the reputation suggests. The car is engineered to be incredible for about 4 years under warranty. After that, you're either deeply in love with it, or you're the person posting, "What's this noise?" on a forum at 11 at night. There's actually a genuinely interesting twist buried in the newest data, though, and it's worth giving credit where it's due. The current generation Range Rover is producing roughly a quarter of the complaint rate that the previous generation had at the same point in its life. Whatever Land Rover's doing differently this time, the cars are measurably getting better. The joke is decades old. The car underneath the joke might not deserve it quite as much as it used to. That won't stop anyone making the joke, though, because some reputations take longer to die than the parts they're mocking. There's a brilliant contrast that sums this up perfectly. Land Cruiser forums are full of people showing off the time they drove across a continent on nothing but street tires. Range Rover forums are full of people asking, "What's this noise?" and "What's this warning light?" and occasionally, "Why is there fluid on my interior?" Same vehicle category, completely different relationship with reliability, and somehow Range Rover owners are still happier with their cars than the data says they should be. Finally, the top of the tree, the SVR, the autobiography, the ones where price stops being a meaningful number and starts being more of a personality statement. But before we get there, it's worth saying something true about every single tier we've just gone through, because underneath all the jokes, there's something genuinely real happening. Whatever tier you're in, whatever you actually paid, the moment you roll into a car meet or a Sunday morning car park gathering, none of that hierarchy actually matters the way it does on the road. Properly run car meets in this country, the caffeine and machine type mornings, the local Sunday gatherings, the club days, they're built on something researchers studying car culture keep finding again and again. The conversations, the troubleshooting tips passed between total strangers, the sense that someone else out there understands exactly why you care this much about a depreciating metal box, that's not nothing. People who study this stuff describe car meets as genuinely supportive social spaces, places where shared experience reduces stress and builds belonging, where collaborative troubleshooting and a bit of encouragement actually does something for people's self-esteem. The best memories from this hobby are rarely about the car at all. They're about the people you met because of it. That's worth holding on to because it cuts straight through the Evoque versus Vogue hierarchy we've just spent several minutes laughing about. At a meet, the Evoque owner and the SVR owner are both just two people who love cars enough to get up early on a Sunday for it. The badge on the bonnet stops being the most interesting thing about either of them. Right, back to the top of the tree, the SVR, the autobiography. If you've made it to this tier, you've stopped explaining yourself to anyone. You don't care about the reliability statistics because you're not the kind of owner who's keeping this car long enough to find out. You don't care about the jokes because you've heard every single one of them from people who'll never own one. You bought the loudest, most expensive version of the most judged car in Britain on purpose, and there is something genuinely admirable about how little you care what anyone thinks. This is also where the real devotion kicks in. People who own these cars for years, through the warning lights and the breakdowns and the eye-watering service bills, talk about them the way other people talk about pets. There's owners out there who'll happily tell you their SVR left them stranded on the side of a road, then in the same breath tell you they love that car more than most people in their life. That's not rational. That's also exactly why this badge has survived 50 years of being simultaneously mocked and worshipped. So that's the full Range Rover hierarchy, from the Evoque getting gatekept at every car meet, to the SVR owner who's stopped listening to anyone's opinion but their own. Different tiers, different excuses, same badge, same unmistakable identity the second it pulls up outside the school gates. Which one are you? Be honest in the comments. And if you're an Evoque owner about to argue with me, I already know what you're going to say.